Boy, come, Bashalan, in the peace, Atele, putting crown on, Byler, her husband, Boy Kailar, come bride. This is a beautiful Hebrew wedding song, as if the angels in heaven are calling for the bride who has been waiting for 6,000 years to stand up bravely and put on the crown of glory for the coming King of Heaven.
大家好，欢迎来到以诺谈天节目。今天我们继续谈雅各的故事，第14部分。约瑟失落满泪流，雅各绝望变石头。以撒安抚也无用，母狼寻子同病连。上几回书我们讲到，两足在利百加的肚子里。我们还细谈了雅各与以扫名字的意义。雅各用红豆汤骗到了长子名分，雅各骗祝福，这两个骗都是双引号，指地上人的眼光。我们谈了雅各双婚，姐妹争风吃醋，雅各诡计聚钱财，拉班贪心失改心，拉结显遭神像祸，拉班穷追雅各家，以扫怒气灭雅各，天使拦阻震虎威，是渐强艰辛爱人，恶中加恶被灭绝。雅各怒吼震群王，100人对阵几十万。好，我们下面就谈约瑟失落满泪流，雅各绝望变石头。我们跳开约瑟被卖，等我们讲约瑟故事时会细谈展开。先看经文描述的雅各听见约瑟噩耗时的情景。
Hello everyone, welcome to EnochTH Show. Today we continue the story of Jacob, part 14. Joseph was lost, Jacob was in tears and turned to stone in despair. Isaac's comfort was useless, and the she-wolf was finding her son with the same disaster. In the last few parts we talked about the two nations are in the belly of Rebekah. We also went into detail about the meaning of the names Jacob and Esau. Jacob deceived the birthright with red bean soup. Jacob cheated the blessing. These two cheats are double quotation marks, referring to the eyes of people on earth. We talked about Jacob's double marriage and sister's jealousy. Jacob's scheme and Laban's 10 times altered Jacob's wages. Rachel nearly died from the idol Laban chased after Jacob's family to kill them. Esau was so angry to come to kill Jacob, and the angel stopped this mighty tiger. Shechem raped his beloved, and was destroyed by his own evil. Jacob's roar shook the kings, 100 against hundreds of thousands. Okay, let's talk about it below. Joseph was lost, Jacob was in tears and turned to stone in despair. We skip ahead of Joseph being sold, and we'll talk more about it when we tell Joseph's story. Look first at the scene described in the scriptures when Jacob heard the loss of Joseph.
流便回到坑边，见约瑟不在坑里，就撕裂衣服，回到兄弟们那里，说童子没有了，我往哪里去才好呢？他们宰了一只公山羊，把约瑟的那件彩衣染了血，打发人送到他们的父亲那里，说我们捡了这个，请任意认识你儿子的外衣，不是？他认的，就说这是我儿子的外衣。有恶兽把它吃了，约瑟被撕碎了。雅各便撕裂衣服，腰间围上麻布，为他儿子悲哀了多日。他的儿女都起来安慰他，他却不肯受安慰，说我必悲哀着下阴间，到我儿子那里。约瑟的父亲就为他哀哭。创世纪37章29至35节和合本。以撒共活了180岁。以撒年纪老迈，日子满足， 气绝而死，归到他列祖原文是本民那里。他2个儿子以扫、雅各把他埋葬了。创世纪35章28至29节和合本。
Then Reuben returned to the pit, and indeed Joseph was not in the pit, and he tore his clothes. And he returned to his brothers and said, The lad is no more, and I, where shall I go? So they took Joseph's tunic, killed a kid of the goats, and dipped the tunic in the blood. Then they sent the tunic of many colors, and they brought it to their father and said, We have found this. Do you know whether it is your son's tunic or not? And he recognized it and said, It is my son's tunic. A wild beast has devoured him. Without doubt Joseph is torn to pieces. Then Jacob tore his clothes, put sackcloth on his waist, and mourned for his son many days. And all his sons and all his daughters arose to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted, and he said, For I shall go down into the grave to my son in mourning. Thus his father wept for him. Genesis 37 verses 29 to 35 NKJV. Now the days of Isaac were 180 years. So Isaac breathed his last and died, and was gathered to his people, being old and full of days. And his sons Esau and Jacob buried him. Genesis 35 verses 28 to 29 NKJV.
经文中先谈以撒死，再谈约瑟被卖。实际上，以撒是约瑟出世后才死的。再多活几年，他就会看见约瑟归来，但上帝给他规定的日子满足了，所以他被上帝接去。180是10倍的生命这个数字，所以说是10满10足的生命。亚伯拉罕原来也该活到180岁。结果因为过于担心以扫，所以上帝提前5年接走了他。而雅各也应该活到180岁，结果因为约瑟失落而过于悲伤，说了不该说的话，最终上帝减去他说的字数，1个字减1年，最终他活了147岁。这些我们后面细谈。这些经文我们看不出雅各有多悲伤，对常人而言，你都有了12个孩子，至于失去了1个那么伤心吗？所以常人很难体会到雅各的心。我们就从亚萨尔书去体会雅各到底有多悲伤，可以说伤心透顶，人都成为一块石头，而且一直伤心了20多年，直到见到约瑟还没缓过劲来，最终才做错事。所以我们要记住大卫做的，悲伤之后要及时止住，才能继续下去，要不然悲伤也会误事。再看亚萨尔书。
The scriptures first talk about Isaac's death, and then talk about Joseph's betrayal. In fact, Isaac died after Joseph's incident. If he lived a few more years, he would see Joseph's return, but the days set by God were fulfilled, so he was taken by God. 180 is the number of 10 times the life, so it is a full life. Abraham was supposed to live to be 180 years old, but because he was too worried about Esau, God took him 5 years earlier. And Jacob should also live to be 180 years old. As a result, because of Joseph's loss and sadness, he said things he shouldn't have said to Pharaoh. In the end, God subtracted the number of words he said, 1 word minus 1 year in his lifespan, and finally he lived to be 147 years old. We will discuss these in detail later. In these verses, we can't see how sad Jacob was. For ordinary people, if you have 12 children, you should not be so sad to lose 1 out of 12. Therefore, it is difficult for ordinary people to understand Jacob's heart. Joseph was his most loved one. We can understand from the book of Jasher how sad Jacob was. It showed that he was so sad that he became as cold as a stone, and he was sad for more than 20 years. Even after he saw Joseph, he still could not dig himself out from sadness. Finally, he made mistakes to show sadness to Pharaoh. So, we have to remember what David did. After the grief, we must stop it in time to continue, otherwise the grief would consume us and do wrong things. Let us read the book of Jasher.
第43章，四流便撕裂衣服，说：“童子不在那里，如果他死了，我父亲怎能安抚呢？”他就到了他的弟兄那里，发现他们因约瑟悲伤，就一起商议怎样安抚他们的父亲。流便对他的弟兄们说：“我来到坑里，看见约瑟不在那里，那么要对我们的父亲怎么说呢？因为我的父亲只会从我这里寻找童子。”他的弟兄们回答说：“我们已经如此行了，我们的心也因此受到折磨。现在我们坐下来寻找一个借口，为要使我们的父亲的安慰。”六流便对他们说：“你们这是做的什么事，使我们的父亲白发苍苍地下到阴间去呢？你们做了本不该做的事。”七流便和他们坐在一起，都起来，彼此发誓，不要把这事告诉雅各。他们都说：“谁要是把这件事告诉我们的父亲或他的家人，或将这事报告给任何土地，我们都要起来攻打他，用刀杀死他。”巴雅各的儿子们在这件事上，从最小的到最老的，都互相惧怕，没有人说话，就把这事藏在心里。久后来，他们坐下来，决定编些事来对他们的父亲雅各说这一切的事情。使以撒迦对他们说：“若你们看这是为好，就给你们一个忠告，把约瑟的衣服撕碎，宰一只公山羊，把衣服蘸在蟹里。11把它寄给我们的父亲。当他看到这衣服时，他会说一个恶兽吞噬了他，撕开了他的外衣，看他的血蘸在他的外衣上。你们如此行，我们就可以摆脱父亲的怨言。12他们听从了以撒迦的话，照着他所吩咐他们的以撒迦的话行了。13他们赶紧把约瑟的外衣撕裂，杀了一只公山羊羔，把外衣浸在羊羔血中，然后踩在尘土中，派拿弗他利把外衣送到他们的父亲雅各那里，并吩咐他说这些话。14我们放牧牛羊，到了事件和更远的地方。当我们在旷野的路上发现这件衣服时，沾满了血和尘土。现在你要知道，那是你儿子的外衣，不是。15拿弗他利去了，来到他父亲那里，把外衣给他，把他弟兄所吩咐他的一切话告诉他。16雅各看见约瑟的外衣，就知道这事，就俯伏在地，如同一块石头。他站起来，大声哀哭说：“这是我儿子约瑟的外衣。”17雅各就急忙打发一个仆人去见他的儿子。他去到他们那里，看见他们和群羊一同走在路上。18雅各的儿子们晚上来到他们的父亲那里，衣服撕裂，头蒙灰尘，看见他们的父亲，大声哀嚎，放声大哭。19雅各对他儿子们说：“你们今日实实在在地告诉我，有什么灾祸临到我身上呢？”他们回答父亲雅各说：“我们放牧牛羊的日子，来到示剑城，在旷野的路上，我们发现这件沾满了血的外套在地上，我们认得这件外衣，我们打发人给你送来，兴许你能认得。”20雅各听见他儿子们的话，就大声喊着说：“这是我儿子的外衣，是恶兽把它吞灭了。约瑟被撕成碎片，是我打发他去看你们和群羊好与不好，然后再回来报告我，他就照我所吩咐的行了。今天这事发生在他身上， 而我以为我的儿子和你们在一起。21雅各的儿子们回答说，他没有到我们这里来，从我们出去的时候，直到现在，我们都没有见过他。22雅各听见这话，就放声大哭，起来撕裂衣服，腰间围上麻布，痛哭，大声哭号说：23约瑟我儿约瑟，我今日打发你去，是看顾你弟兄的平安，你却被撕碎了。我的儿子在我的手上竟发生这样的事。24我的儿子约瑟，为你伤心，我为你伤心。在世的时候，你是何等甘甜，你的死使我极其痛苦。25经文缺失，我儿约瑟，我已经死了，我儿啊，我为你悲伤。约瑟，我儿，你在哪里？你在哪里？我的儿子约瑟啊，求你起来，从你所在的地方醒来，看了我的愁苦。26现在你来，眼泪从我的脸颊流下，把他们带到耶和华面前，使他的怒气转离我。27经文缺失。28现在醒来，麻烦你我的儿看看我是多么痛苦。虽然我没有追随你，也没有塑造你的气息和灵魂，而是上帝塑造了你的骨头，上面盖着肉，生命的气息吹在你的鼻孔里，然后把你赐给我。29现在赐你给我的神又把你带走了，就像你降临那样。30雅各继续说些关于约瑟的话，痛哭流涕，他倒在地上安静下来。31雅各的儿子们看见他们所父亲遭受的痛苦，就后悔自己所做的事，也痛哭流涕。32犹大起来，把他父亲的头从地上抬起来，放在自己膝上，将父亲的眼泪从腮上抹去，犹大就放声大哭，父亲的头仍是枕在他膝上，像石头一样。33雅各的儿子们看见他们父亲的痛苦，就放声而哭，雅各仍旧躺在地上，像石头一样。34他的众子和仆人，并仆人的儿女都起来，站在他周围安慰他，他却不肯受安慰。35雅各全家因为约瑟和他们父亲的患难而起身哀悼。消息传到雅各的父亲亚伯拉罕的儿子以撒那里，他就为约瑟悲伤哭泣。他和他的全家就离开希伯伦的驻地，同去安慰他的儿子雅各，雅各却不肯受安慰。36之后，雅各从地上起来，泪水顺着他的脸颊流下，对他的儿子们说：起来，拿好你的剑和弓，往田野去寻找，看看是否能找到我儿子的尸体，把他交给我，让我可以埋葬他。37求你们去野兽中找寻，抓住第一头，并带到我这里来。也许今日耶和华必在你们面前连续我的苦难，把那将我儿子撕成碎片的野兽交给我，好为我儿子复仇。38他儿子照他们父亲所吩咐的行了。清早起来，个人拿着刀和弓往田间去打猎。39雅各仍然大声哭泣，在屋里来回踱步，双手合十说：约瑟我儿，约瑟我儿。40雅各的众子就往旷野去捕猎，不料一只狼跑向他们，被他们抓住，就带到他们的父亲那里，对他说：这是我们所找到的第一头，就像你所吩咐我们的，把他带到你这里，但是我们找不到你儿子的尸体。41雅各从他儿子手里接过兽，大声悲哀哭泣，手持兽，心里恨恶说：你为什么吞吃我的儿子约瑟？你怎么不惧怕地上的神和我儿约瑟带给我的痛苦呢？42你把我儿子吞了，他从未行过强暴，这使我非常痛苦，神会报应那逼迫的人。43主耶和华开了兽的口，要用言语安慰雅各，那兽回答雅各，对雅各说了这话。44永活的耶和华神在地球上创造了我们，谁又敢在你面前起誓呢？我主， 我没有看到你的儿子，我也没有把他撕成碎片。这天，我从远方来找寻我离开的儿子，不知道他是活着还是死了。45今日，我来到田间寻找我儿，你的众子见了我，就抓住我，使我更加悲痛。今日将我带到你面前，我也将我的一切话都告诉了你。46所以人子啊，现在我在你手中，你今日对我所行，在你眼中显为美善，但造我生命的乃是耶和华。我没有看见你的儿子，我也没有把他撕成碎片，我这一生从未吃过人肉。47雅各听见兽的言语，就甚惊奇，从他手里把那兽放了，他就走了。48雅各天天为约瑟哭泣，为他儿子悲哀了许多日子。
Chapter 43 For and Reuben tore his garments, and he said, The child is not there, and how shall I reconcile my father about him if he be dead? And he went to his brethren and found them grieving on account of Joseph, and counseling together how to reconcile their father about him. And Reuben said unto his brethren, I came to the pit, and behold Joseph was not there. What then shall we say unto our father? For my father will only seek the lad from me. 5 And his brethren answered him, saying, Thus and thus we did, and our hearts afterward smote us on account of this act, and we now sit to seek a pretext how we shall reconcile our father to it. 6 And Reuben said unto them, What is this you have done to bring down the gray hairs of our father in sorrow to the grave? The thing is not good that you have done. 7 And Reuben sat with them, and they all rose up and swore to each other not to tell this thing unto Jacob, and they all said, The man who will tell this to our father or his household, or who will report this to any of the children of the land, we will all rise up against him and slay him with the sword. 8 And the sons of Jacob feared each other in this matter, from the youngest to the oldest, and no one spoke a word, and they concealed the thing in their hearts. 9 And they afterward sat down to determine and invent something to say unto their father Jacob concerning all these things. 10 And Issachar said unto them, Here is an advice for you if it seem good in your eyes to do this thing. Take the coat which belongeth to Joseph and tear it, and kill a kid of the goats and dip it in its blood. 11 And send it to our father, and when he seeth it he will say an evil beast has devoured him. Therefore tear ye his coat, and behold his blood will be upon his coat, and by your doing this we shall be free of our father's murmurings. 12 And Issachar's advice pleased them, and they hearkened unto him, and they did according to the word of Issachar which he had counseled them. 13 And they hastened and took Joseph's coat and tore it, and they killed a kid of the goats and dipped the coat in the blood of the kid, and then trampled it in the dust, and they sent the coat to their father Jacob by the hand of Naphtali, and they commanded him to say these words. 14 We had gathered in the cattle and had come as far as the road to Shechem and farther, when we found this coat upon the road in the wilderness dipped in blood and in dust. Now therefore know whether it be thy son's coat or not. 15 And Naphtali went, and he came unto his father, and he gave him the coat, and he spoke unto him all the words which his brethren had commanded him. 16 And Jacob saw Joseph's coat, and he knew it, and he fell upon his face to the ground, and became as still as a stone. And he afterward rose up and cried out with a loud and weeping voice, and he said, It is the coat of my son Joseph. 17 And Jacob hastened and sent one of his servants to his sons, who went to them and found them coming along the road with the flock. 18 And the sons of Jacob came to their father about evening, and behold their garments were torn, and dust was upon their heads, and they found their father crying out and weeping with a loud voice. 19 And Jacob said unto his sons, Tell me truly, what evil have you this day suddenly brought upon me? And they answered their father Jacob, saying, We were coming along this day after the flock had been gathered in, and we came as far as the city of Shechem by the road in the wilderness, and we found this coat filled with blood upon the ground, and we knew it, and we sent unto thee if thou couldst know it. 20 And Jacob heard the words of his sons, and he cried out with a loud voice, and he said, It is the coat of my son, an evil beast has devoured him. Joseph is rent in pieces, for I sent him this day to see whether it was well with you and well with the flocks, and to bring me word again from you. And he went as I commanded him, and this has happened to him this day, whilst I thought my son was with you. 21 And the sons of Jacob answered and said, He did not come to us, neither have we seen him from the time of our going out from thee until now. 22 And when Jacob heard their words, he again cried out aloud, and he rose up and tore his garments, and he put sackcloth upon his loins, and he wept bitterly, and he mourned and lifted up his voice in weeping, and exclaimed and said these words. 23 Joseph my son, O my son Joseph, I sent thee this day after the welfare of thy brethren, and behold thou hast been torn in pieces, through my hand has this happened to my son. 24 It grieves me for thee Joseph my son, it grieves me for thee, how sweet wast thou to me during life, and now how exceedingly bitter is thy death to me. 25 That I had died in thy stead Joseph my son, for it grieves me sadly for thee my son, O my son, my son. Joseph my son, where art thou, and where hast thou been drawn? Arouse, arouse from thy place, and come and see my grief for thee, O my son Joseph. 26 Come now and number the tears gushing from my eyes down my cheeks, and bring them up before the Lord, that his anger may turn from me. 27 Joseph my son, how didst thou fall? By the hand of one by whom no one had fallen from the beginning of the world unto this day, for thou hast been put to death by the smiting of an enemy, inflicted with cruelty, but surely I know that this has happened to thee, on account of the multitude of my sins. 28 Arouse now and see how bitter is my trouble for thee my son, although I did not rear thee, nor fashion thee, nor give thee breath and soul, but it was God who formed thee and built thy bones and covered them with flesh, and breathed in thy nostrils the breath of life, and then he gave thee unto me. 29 Now truly God, who gave thee unto me, he has taken thee from me, and such then has befallen thee. 30 And Jacob continued to speak like unto these words concerning Joseph, and he wept bitterly, he fell to the ground and became still. 31 And all the sons of Jacob, seeing their father's trouble, they repented of what they had done, and they also wept bitterly. 32 And Judah rose up and lifted his father's head from the ground, and placed it upon his lap, and he wiped his father's tears from his cheeks, and Judah wept an exceeding great weeping, whilst his father's head was reclining upon his lap, still as a stone. 33 And the sons of Jacob saw their father's trouble, and they lifted up their voices and continued to weep, and Jacob was yet lying upon the ground still as a stone. 34 And all his sons and his servants' children rose up and stood round him to comfort him, and he refused to be comforted. 35 And the whole household of Jacob rose up and mourned a great mourning on account of Joseph and their father's trouble, and the intelligence reached Isaac, the son of Abraham, the father of Jacob, and he wept bitterly on account of Joseph, he and all his household, and he went from the place where he dwelt in Hebron, and his men with him, and he comforted Jacob his son, and he refused to be comforted. 36 And after this, Jacob rose up from the ground, and his tears were running down his cheeks, and he said unto his sons, Rise up and take your swords and your bows, and go forth into the field, and seek whether you can find my son's body and bring it unto me that I may bury it. 37 Seek also, I pray you, among the beasts and hunt them, and that which shall come the first before you seize and bring it unto me. Perhaps the Lord will this day pity my affliction, and prepare before you that which did tear my son in pieces, and bring it unto me, and I will avenge the cause of my son. 38 And his sons did as their father had commanded them, and they rose up early in the morning, and each took his sword and his bow in his hand, and they went forth into the field to hunt the beasts. 39 And Jacob was still crying aloud and weeping and walking to and fro in the house, and smiting his hands together, saying, Joseph my son, Joseph my son. 40 And the sons of Jacob went into the wilderness to seize the beasts, and behold a wolf came toward them, and they seized him, and brought him unto their father, and they said unto him, This is the first we have found, and we have brought him unto thee as thou didst command us, and thy son's body we could not find. 41 And Jacob took the beast from the hands of his sons, and he cried out with a loud and weeping voice, holding the beast in his hand, and he spoke with a bitter heart unto the beast, Why didst thou devour my son Joseph, and how didst thou have no fear of the God of the earth, or of my trouble for my son Joseph? 42 And thou didst devour my son for naught, because he committed no violence, and didst thereby render me culpable on his account, therefore God will require him that is persecuted. 43 And the Lord opened the mouth of the beast in order to comfort Jacob with its words, and it answered Jacob and spoke these words unto him. 44 As God liveth, who created us in the earth, and as thy soul liveth, my Lord, I did not see thy son, neither did I tear him to pieces, but from a distant land I also came to seek my son who went from me this day, and I know not whether he be living or dead. 45 And I came this day into the field to seek my son, and your sons found me, and seized me and increased my grief, and have this day brought me before thee, and I have now spoken all my words to thee. 46 And now therefore, O Son of Man, I am in thy hands, and do unto me this day as it may seem good in thy sight, but by the life of God who created me, I did not see thy son, nor did I tear him to pieces, neither has the flesh of man entered my mouth all the days of my life. 47 And when Jacob heard the words of the beast he was greatly astonished, and sent forth the beast from his hand, and she went her way. 48 And Jacob was still crying aloud and weeping for Joseph day after day, and he mourned for his son many days.
那位会问，雅各至于如此吗？其实，之所以雅各钟爱约瑟，不仅仅是拉结生的，他心爱的女人生的，那是表面现象，因为他已经知道他的正妻是利亚，所以利亚的孩子才是真正自己的。拉结的孩子算替哥哥以扫留后的，所以算是亚当家的。可真是因为他知道，以色列全家的命都会在约瑟的手中，以色列全家是靠着抓住约瑟的脚后跟才逃脱的，所以约瑟要是没了，那全家都没指望了。这点与亚伯拉罕献以撒类同，因为以撒是上帝应许的救恩的传递者，他没了，救恩就无地可安放了。约瑟死了，雅各家也完了，到时候抓谁的脚后跟？这时候他想到了便雅悯，说不定他的后代会出救主，末日的弥赛亚约瑟王。所以他立刻给小便雅悯娶一个妻子，几年后再娶一个，最终便雅悯在见到约瑟时已经生了10个儿子。所以说，这正是证明了雅各信上帝的安排，雅各家抓以扫的后脚跟逃离大灾难。当年上帝是用7+7，7个丰年，接着7个欠收的年来完成预告，而今天我们正在最后7个丰年里，这次是实体，我们以后会详细的谈这方面。回到雅各，亚萨尔书还记载了以撒死时的情节。
Someone may wonder how could Jacob is so sad losing one of sons out of 12 sons? In fact, Jacob loved Joseph so much that not only because Joseph was the son from Rachel to whom he loved the most. This is a superficial reason, because he already knew at that time that his wife was Leah, so Leah's children were his own offspring. The sons from Rachel were for his brother Esau, so they belonged to Adam's family. But it was because he knew that the life of the entire family of Israel would be in Joseph's shoulder, and the entire family of Israel escaped by grabbing Joseph's heels, so if Joseph was gone, the whole family would have no hope. This is very similar to Abraham's offering of Isaac, because Isaac was the one to whom God's promised salvation. Without him, there was no place for salvation. When Joseph was dead, and any hope for Jacob's house was diminished, so whoever's heel was to be caught. At that time, Jacob thought of Benjamin, and maybe his descendants would produce the Savior, the Messiah King Joseph in the doomsday. So, he immediately arranged a marriage for little Benjamin, and a few years later, and finally Benjamin had 10 sons by the time he met Joseph. So, this action just shows us that Jacob believed in God's arrangement, and Jacob's family grabbed Esau's heel to escape the great disaster. And Esau's heel will be either from Joseph's or Benjamin's descendants. Back then, God used 7 plus 7, 7 years of abundance, followed by 7 years of poor harvest to complete the prophecy, and today we are in the last few years in the 7 years of abundance in the doomsday, and this time it is the true entity, and we will talk about this in detail later. Back to Jacob, the book of Jasher also records the details of Isaac's death.
以那时，亚伯拉罕的儿子以撒仍住在迦南地，他年纪老迈，180岁。他儿子雅各的兄弟以扫在以东地，他和他的儿子在希尔的子孙中有产业。二以扫听说他父亲临近死亡，他和他的儿子全家都来到迦南的。到他父家，雅各和他的儿子从他们住在希伯伦的地方出来，他们都来到他们的父亲以撒那里。他们在帐篷里找到以扫和他的儿子。三雅各和他的儿子们坐在他父亲以撒面前，雅各仍为他儿子约瑟哀哭。四以撒对雅各说：“你把你的儿子带到我这里来，我要赐福给他们。”雅各就把他的11个孩子带到他父亲以撒面前。五以撒按手在雅各的儿子们，他抓住他们，拥抱他们，一一和他们亲嘴。以撒就给他们祝福，对他们说：“愿你们列祖的神保佑你，增加你的后裔，像天上的星一样多。”六以撒也为以扫的子孙祝福，说：“愿神使你们在一切所见的和一切仇敌面前成为惊骇和恐惧。”七以撒叫雅各和他的众子，他们都来坐在以撒面前。以撒对雅各说：“全地的神亚哈威对我说，我必将这的赐给你的后裔为业。如果你的孩子遵行我的法度和我的道路，我将向他们显明我向你父亲亚伯拉罕起誓所立的约。八现在我儿，教导你的孩子和你的孩子的孩子敬畏耶和华，并以良好的方式去取悦耶和华你的神。因为如果你谨守耶和华的道和他的律例，耶和华对你也将保持他与亚伯拉罕所立的约，并在你所有的年月保守你和你的后裔。九以撒嘱咐雅各和他的孩子们已毕，他就放弃他的灵魂，死了，归到他列祖那里。使雅各和以扫扑在他们的父亲以撒身上，哭了。以撒死在迦南地希伯伦的时候180岁，他的儿子们把他带到麦比拉田间的洞，就是亚伯拉罕向赫人的子孙买来做坟地的那里。11迦南地的诸王都与雅各和以扫一同埋葬以撒，迦南的诸王都在他死后向以撒表示了极大的尊荣。12雅各的儿子和以扫的儿子赤脚而行，一边走一边哀哭，直到他们到达基列亚巴。13雅各和以扫将他们的父亲以撒葬在希伯伦基列亚巴的麦比拉洞里，他们就以极大的荣耀埋葬了他，像在列王的葬礼上一样。14雅各和他的儿子以扫和他的众子，并迦南的诸王都为他捶胸哀哭了许多日子。 15以撒死的时候，将他的牲畜和财物都留给他的儿子。以扫对雅各说：我恳求你，我们父亲所留下的，我们要分成2部分，我会选择。雅各说：我们必这样行。16雅各拿着以撒在迦南地所剩下的一切牲畜和财产，将它们分成2部分，摆在以扫和他的众子面前，对以扫说：看哪，这一切都在你面前，你要选择你自己要拿的那一半。17雅各对以扫说：求你听我对你所说的话，说愿耶和华天上的神与我们的祖宗亚伯拉罕和以撒说，我要将这地赐给你的后裔，直到永远。18现在我们父亲所留下的一切都在你面前，看哪，遍地都在你面前，你要从中选择你所想要的。19你若愿全地永久的为你和你的子孙，我就取这财宝，你所要的财宝归你，我要将这赐我之地使我的子孙永远承受为业。20以时玛丽的儿子尼巴约和他的子孙也在那地，并且那日以扫继续与他商议说：21雅各对我说了这话，他就这样回答我，现在你给我意见，我们会听。22尼巴约说：雅各对你说的是什么呢？迦南的儿女都安然居住在他们的地上。雅各说：他必让他的后裔世世代代承受那地。23现在你去取你父亲一切的财物，在地上只留下你兄弟雅各，正如他所说的。24以扫就起来，回到雅各那里，照以实玛利的儿子尼巴约所吩咐的行了。以扫夺了以撒所剩下的一切财物，就是人、牲畜、牛羊、财产和一切的财物，他没有给他的兄弟雅各留下什么。雅各将迦南全地，从埃及河直到幼发拉底河，都取为永远的产业，为他的儿女，并他的后裔，直到永远。25雅各从他哥哥以扫那里买了希伯伦的麦比拉洞，就是亚伯拉罕从以弗伦买来的，要为他和他的后裔永远做坟地。26雅各在文书中所写的这些事，都是他亲笔写的，并且用4个诚实的见证人做见证。27这是雅各在文书中所写的，说迦南地赫人的城邑，西魏、耶布斯、亚摩利、比利洗、加勒底，从埃及和直到幼发拉底河的7国。28又有希伯伦、基列亚8城和其中的洞，雅各从他哥哥以扫那里买了他的产业，属他的后裔，直到永远。29雅各把亲笔写的买卖文书和诫命、律例、典章都取了来，放在瓦器里，使他们可以存留很长时间，把他们交在他儿女的手中。30以扫从他兄弟雅各夺走了他父亲以撒死后留下的所有财产，从人与牲畜、骆驼和驴、牛和羊、金银、宝石，以及曾属于亚伯拉罕的儿子以撒的一切财富，以撒死后所留下的一切，以扫并没有再留下任何东西。31以扫把这一切都夺了去，他和他的子孙就回家去了，从他兄弟雅各和他的子孙那里往希尔地去。32以扫在希尔的子孙中有产业，从那一天起，以扫再也没有回到迦南地。33于是迦南全地成为以色列人永远的产业，以扫和他所有的子孙都继承了希尔山。
Book of Jasher, Chapter 47. One and Isaac the son of Abraham was still living in those days in the land of Canaan. He was very aged, 180 years old, and Esau his son, the brother of Jacob, was in the land of Edom, and he and his sons had possessions in it amongst the children of Seir. 2 And Esau heard that his father's time was drawing nigh to die, and he and his sons and household came unto the land of Canaan, unto his father's house, and Jacob and his sons went forth from the place where they dwelt in Hebron, and they all came to their father Isaac, and they found Esau and his sons in the tent. 3 And Jacob and his sons sat before his father Isaac, and Jacob was still mourning for his son Joseph. 4 And Isaac said unto Jacob, Bring me hither thy sons, and I will bless them. And Jacob brought his 11 children before his father Isaac. 5 And Isaac placed his hands upon all the sons of Jacob, and he took hold of them and embraced them, and kissed them one by one, and Isaac blessed them on that day. And he said unto them, May the God of your fathers bless you, and increase your seed like the stars of heaven for number. 6 And Isaac also blessed the sons of Esau, saying, May God cause you to be a dread and a terror to all that will behold you, and to all your enemies. 7 And Isaac called Jacob and his sons, and they all came and sat before Isaac. And Isaac said unto Jacob, The Lord God of the whole earth said unto me, Unto thy seed will I give this land for an inheritance, if thy children keep my statutes and my ways, and I will perform unto them the oath which I swore unto thy father Abraham. 8 Now therefore, my son, teach thy children and thy children's children to fear the Lord, and to go in the good way which will please the Lord thy God. For if you keep the ways of the Lord and his statutes, the Lord will also keep unto you his covenant with Abraham, and will do well with you and your seed all the days. 9 And when Isaac had finished commanding Jacob and his children, he gave up the ghost and died, and was gathered unto his people. 10 And Jacob and Esau fell upon the face of their father Isaac, and they wept. And Isaac was 180 years old when he died in the land of Canaan, in Hebron, and his sons carried him to the cave of Machpelah, which Abraham had bought from the children of Heth for a possession of a burial place. 11 And all the kings of the land of Canaan went with Jacob and Esau to bury Isaac, and all the kings of Canaan showed Isaac great honor at his death. 12 And the sons of Jacob and the sons of Esau went barefooted round about, walking and lamenting until they reached Kirith-arba. 13 And Jacob and Esau buried their father Isaac in the cave of Machpelah, which is in Kirith-arba in Hebron, and they buried him with very great honor, as at the funeral of kings. 14 And Jacob and his sons, and Esau and his sons, and all the kings of Canaan made a great and heavy mourning, and they buried him and mourned for him many days. 15 And at the death of Isaac, he left his cattle and his possessions and all belonging to him to his sons, and Esau said unto Jacob, Behold, I pray thee, all that our father has left we will divide it in 2 parts, and I will have the choice. And Jacob said, We will do so. 16 And Jacob took all that Isaac had left in the land of Canaan, the cattle and the property, and he placed them in 2 parts before Esau and his sons. And he said unto Esau, Behold, all this is before thee, choose thou unto thyself the half which thou wilt take. 17 And Jacob said unto Esau, Hear thou, I pray thee, what I will speak unto thee, saying, The Lord God of heaven and earth spoke unto our fathers Abraham and Isaac, saying, Unto thy seed will I give this land for an inheritance forever. 18 Now therefore all that our father has left is before thee, and behold, all the land is before thee, choose thou from them what thou desirest. 19 If thou desirest the whole land, take it for thee and thy children forever, and I will take this riches, and if thou desirest the riches, take it unto thee, and I will take this land for me and for my children to inherit it forever. 20 And Nebaioth, the son of Ishmael, was then in the land with his children, and Esau went on that day and consulted with him, saying, 21 Thus has Jacob spoken unto me, and thus has he answered me, now give thy advice, and we will hear. 22 And Nebaioth said, What is this that Jacob hath spoken unto thee? Behold, all the children of Canaan are dwelling securely in their land, and Jacob saith he will inherit it with his seed all the days. 23 Go now therefore, and take all thy father's riches, and leave Jacob thy brother in the land, as he has spoken. 24 And Esau rose up and returned to Jacob, and did all that Nebaioth the son of Ishmael had advised, and Esau took all the riches that Isaac had left, the souls, the beasts, the cattle and the property, and all the riches. He gave nothing to his brother Jacob, and Jacob took all the land of Canaan, from the brook of Egypt unto the river Euphrates, and he took it for an everlasting possession, and for his children and for his seed after him forever. 25 Jacob also took from his brother Esau the cave of Machpelah, which is in Hebron, which Abraham had bought from Ephron for a possession of a burial place for him and his seed forever. 26 And Jacob wrote all these things in the book of purchase, and he signed it, and he testified all this with 4 faithful witnesses. 27 And these are the words which Jacob wrote in the book, saying, The land of Canaan and all the cities of the Hittites, the Hivites, the Jebusites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, and the Girgashites, all the 7 nations from the river of Egypt unto the river Euphrates. 28 And the city of Hebron Kirith-Arba, and the cave which is in it, the whole did Jacob buy from his brother Esau for value, for a possession and for an inheritance for his seed after him forever. 29 And Jacob took the book of purchase and the signature, the command and the statutes and the revealed book, and he placed them in an earthen vessel in order that they should remain for a long time, and he delivered them into the hands of his children. 30 Esau took all that his father had left him after his death from his brother Jacob, and he took all the property, from man and beast, camel and ass, ox and lamb, silver and gold, stones and bdellium, and all the riches which had belonged to Isaac the son of Abraham. There was nothing left which Esau did not take unto himself, from all that Isaac had left after his death. 31 And Esau took all this, and he and his children went home to the land of Seir the Horite, away from his brother Jacob and his children. 32 And Esau had possessions amongst the children of Seir, and Esau returned not to the land of Canaan from that day forward. 33 And the whole land of Canaan became an inheritance to the children of Israel for an everlasting inheritance, and Esau with all his children inherited the mountain of Seir.
你看，以扫再次轻看祝福，所以15岁轻看，现在120岁还轻看，这就是一贯性了。雅各让以扫再次签字画押，卖了长子名分，这次绝对是真的，因为他根本不知道这名分是啥，他的老师撒旦根本没告诉他，直到雅各归天，以扫才知道，应该是撒旦告诉他的，为的是破坏雅各葬礼，这才让以扫知道的。下回书要说，约瑟为王震四方，雅各闯关变雅悯。希拉田美歌悠扬，雅各临行喜团圆。雅各故事第15部分，也是雅各家最喜悦的时刻。过去整整22年，在绝望与悲哀中度过，现在一切都不敢想象。谢谢大家收听以诺谈天节目，我们下回见。
You see, Esau despised blessing again, so he despised it when he was 15 years old, and now he despised it at 120 years old. This is a habit. Jacob asked Esau to sign again and sell the birthright. This time it was absolutely true, because he didn't know what the title was. His teacher Satan didn't tell him at all until Jacob returned to heaven. Yes, Satan should have told him the birthright truth when Jacob died, in order to destroy Jacob's funeral. That was when Esau knew the truth. The next book will say, Joseph shook the 4 corners in the kingdom. Jacob broke through his life barrier to let Benjamin go. Sarah's sweet song was melodious. Jacob waked up and reunited with Joseph. The 15th part of Jacob's story is also the most joyous moment for the Jacob family. The past 22 years had been spent in despair and sorrow, and now everything was unimaginable. Thank you for listening to the Enoch Talk Show. See you next time.